Hello, my name is Chae. I'm a partner at Blockwater Management. We invest in crypto assets, crypto digital assets, and we recently, Blockwater recently invested in SuperTree as well. Joony mentioned the team, and I'll be leading the panel today. Before we go on, why don't we just introduce ourselves first, briefly?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jehan Chu. I'm one of the co-founders of Kenetic. We are a Hong Kong-based blockchain investment platform. We do high-frequency trading, structured products, and equity and token investments. And I'm also the founder of the Ethereum Meetup and the co-founder of the Bitcoin Association.
Hi, my name is Mehler. I work for Block.one. I'm on the investment team at EOSVC. We specialize in investing in companies that are building on the EOSIO protocol and are based here in Hong Kong and have 5 subsidiary funds around the globe also doing the same mandate.
Hi, I'm Joony Koo from Blockcrafters Capital, founding partner there and director of global business at Blockcrafters. Blockcrafters Capital is a crypto fund heavily investing in, mainly investing in ICOs. And Blockcrafters is an acceleration and consultancy firm helping blockchain companies to build their business.
Hi, my name is Ethan. I'm from Hashed. So Hashed, we've co-founded the company 2 years ago, and we are actively investing in blockchain gaming and DeFi and the infrastructure layer. So yeah, that's it.
So I'll start off with the first question. I think Joony covered most of the questions that I had prepared, but we have many other investors who might have different opinions. So the first one is that, they say that you can't predict the success of a game. So I just would like to ask you guys what you guys prioritize when you decide to invest into game.
Sure, I'll start. So Block.one, so far we've allocated about $200 million to companies building on EOSIO, and of that, there's been a substantial proportion of that $200 million that has been in the gaming space. And looking at a different variety of games, we've made sure to invest in the underlying team. If you're going to invest in a gaming company, if the team's not there that has a track record of building a great game or knows how to build a great game, you're going to end up with a game that's not desirable by the public. It may have a good early adoption, but not a long tail. And so finding a game company that's led by industry leaders or experienced game developers, or even those that are first out of the gate building or first time building, and they have a game that seems addictive, that's really what we're going to focus on. We're less focused on the token aspects of the game. In order to get mass adoption, which I think everyone here is going for, you have to have a game that's easy to play, you desire to play it, and you encourage others to play it. Without those 3 components, you're really not going to have a game that's going to take off. If it's cumbersome to play, or you add another hurdle by implementing blockchain, you actually distract from the purpose of the game. So we're really looking for a game that has the ability to scale. And that the team is clever enough with their blockchain team to integrate blockchain in a meaningful way and doesn't distract from the main gameplay.
I think one of the things that was quite interesting in one of the previous talks is about this idea of kind of incentivization inside of the game. For I think traditional gaming, definitely, it's team and it's good to play, and that's very important as well. I think blockchain-based games add a kind of another layer of both opportunity and kind of friction, because it's not a native platform for most kind of gamers out there. But what I think is good about blockchain games is that it does add this kind of this aspect of interoperability and this idea that you can kind of create actual monetary incentives inside of the game if they're well crafted, if they're well kind of planned out. And I'm most interested in these types of new ideas. Now, it's still very nascent, but I like this idea that you can get paid to play for certain parts of the game and at different stages, and you can also sell the things that you have. So for me, I think one of the things that I really look for in blockchain-based games especially is that novel and interesting and compelling use of incentivization, and specifically monetary incentivization that can be part of the entire gameplay. I think that's where you really start to branch out from the niche of kind of decentralized blockchain games into things that people really are immediately care about and are immediately excited by.
For me, right now, the So it's basically two things that I'm looking into recently. One is if a blockchain game company has built a blockchain game and it's doing pretty well, I believe that they can build more games that are like that. So this is a little harsh, but I look for success stories before investing in that company. And if you do not have that, then I'm focusing more on a platform or a concept that can actually facilitate the traditional gaming industry. Because, there's a massive difference. Because like when you look into blockchain, it's the whole market cap is right now, it's gone up to 700 billion, right now I think it's somewhere around 3 to 4. Gaming is a market of $250 billion. That's its revenues, not market cap, right? So that's where the market is, that's where the users are, that's where the mass user adoption that blockchain really dearly wants, it's already there. So instead of trying to bring the gaming industry into blockchain, which is not going to happen in the short term, why don't you provide a solution that's the traditional gaming industry may need?
So from our perspective, we value the team first. So every investment firm will focus on the team first. Once we look into the team, if the team has previous experience, strong experience in traditional gaming, it is plus point. And if the founder is quite good at business for expanding their games to make another partnership with a strong game companies, it is plus point too. And also, we are looking for the point which is directly related to the blockchain games future. So this is very early stage. We are hypothesize many things on top of blockchain gaming, but thanks to the blockchain's feature, we can use smart contract, and most of the data will be transparent on top of blockchain. So we are looking for the point, why it should be on top of blockchain. And if they can make a very fun and interesting point by combining blockchain features, we value the team as well.
Thank you for your opinions. Next question that I have for you guys is that a lot of people say that the game money used in current games will all be changed into cryptocurrencies. So cryptocurrencies will be the next game money, basically. That's what a lot of people say, and just want to know if you guys agree with that. And I think in order for that to happen, you need to see the major gaming companies, more large companies, not the indie games, not the startups, implementing these blockchain crypto. Do you observe have you come across the major companies looking into this space, looking into crypto and implementing blockchain? So 2 questions there.
So last year we were helping NHN Entertainment to come into blockchain. That didn't follow through as the winter came. So what that kind of showed me was that even large companies that are interested in blockchain are looking for a new market. It's more money grab. Well, I hope this is recorded, but it's even bigger companies are looking for large financial opportunities with blockchain. That's what I kind of experienced working with them. The people who are on the ground working do not think like that, but the decision makers probably will. And that is the lack of knowledge they have with blockchain and cryptos. But the idea of most of the gaming currencies turning into cryptocurrencies, I think if anyone who has built an in-game currency before in a traditional game will not agree to this. Especially if it's not about specific gaming economies in cryptos, like individual games, but if it's a whole company thinking of building a currency for all its games, making games doesn't work like that. Like balancing different economies between different games is a hellhole. And I actually presented an idea like this when I was at Come To Us to the production team. And the criticism I got from the 15 producers in that room was, it's because creating games and currency is about meta. And balancing that meta with the gameplay is probably the most gruesome thing that you can experience. And when the game is already out and there's updates and there's new seasons coming, rebalancing that. And if it's not just within the game, but you have to rebalance it with all the other games as well, I don't think that's something like that can actually happen.
Yeah, I'll take a slightly different approach to it. I think it's absolutely possible that a large portion of kind of games will switch over to kind of cryptocurrency. And I think the more important kind of lesson here is that it's not really just about game companies or games. It's actually about just the entire kind of corporate entities. If you look at obviously what Facebook is doing, what JP Morgan is doing, they're basically using cryptocurrency to capture value where value was harder to capture before, and using crypto to basically capture, transfer, and create new types of business lines. I think that equally potentially applies to games. I take your point about the difficulty of trying to balance in-game economies when you have a currency which can flow outside of that economy. And I think that's true. But I think that there are many different ways to actually lock tokens, specific types of tokens, into an economy so that you can keep that kind of gameplay and that microeconomy while at the same time having gates that go in and out of that economy into like a meta token. So I think that generally, the lesson is, yes, tokens can be very useful at quantifying value, transferring value, and I think that it's even more exciting that these tokens, when they start to flow in and out of these kind of micro systems in controlled ways where the game planners have that control, it starts to become a way of advertising, marketing, spreading the kind of game itself, literally through the currency, and that's pretty exciting. And I think that's not only in the online world, but even in the online-offline world. One of the games that we kind of are involved in is Satoshi's Treasure, which is not actually a blockchain game per se, or decentralized game. It's more of like an online-offline game which uses blockchain as its backbone in the real world and the online world. And to me, those are the things that are really exciting to create these new kind of like incentivization models.
Yep, so in my opinion, I think it is related to the token models and also the feature of the game. So if the game design itself is directly related to the governance model combined by tokens, it is very important for using cryptocurrencies inside of the game. But in terms of just a medium of exchange, I think there are a lot of convenient ways, payment methods already. And if we think about Apple Pay, iOS devices are already established very well globally, so it is a very convenient way to pay something inside of the game. But in cryptocurrencies, there are lots of hurdles right now. So the user experience is really bad, and the wallet is not spread it out to the users. So to use cryptocurrencies inside of the game, there are lots of hurdles to overcome. But if the cryptocurrencies is really related to the game design itself, I think it can bring a lot of fun inside of the game. So for example, there are lots of governance system inside of the game which was already established in like a Lineage or like Korean online game. They are very used to the governance system itself. So once the cryptocurrencies can utilize the kind of game design inside of the tokens, I think it is very powerful tools for the users and growing the community inside of the game.
Thanks for your opinions. And Jehan mentioned that there's efforts coming from JP Morgan and Facebook, like Libra and all that, and they show that all the gaming companies could actually turn their game monies into cryptocurrencies. And from that, I just wanted to ask, like, if Libra were to go live, I mean, they said that they're going to wait till all the regulatory hurdles are resolved. But if they actually do come out and penetrate, expand the crypto or enable the mass public to adopt cryptocurrency, do you think that that's going to be a turning point for blockchain games as well? Yeah.
No, I don't think it's going to be a turning point for blockchain games per se. I think that a lot of the issues that were brought up previously about the challenges of kind of developing blockchain games still hold true. Having a kind of some type of value, like universal value token or quasi-universal value token, is something that can potentially help bring more attention, help bring more kind of economics to the game. But I don't think it fixes some of the fundamental challenges that blockchain-based games have in terms of implementation and kind of smaller developer base and kind of scalability, et cetera. So I think it potentially helps, but I don't know if I don't think it's a silver bullet by any means.
Let me rephrase my question. So what I'm trying to get at is that I just want to find out what your opinion is about when it comes to the mass adoption. Like, will it come through large companies like Libra, or will you think this unicorn blockchain game company will bring this mass adoption of cryptocurrencies to the game space?
Sure. I think it's a little bit of a blended approach. There's obviously going to be pushes from large companies implementing blockchain that's going to help with the awareness. But at the same time, you talked about the regulatory side of it. Like, while regulatory sides and laws and jurisdictions across all borders come more into play and become fully developed, I think that actually helps the adoption where people know in what way, in which manner they can use the blockchain or use a cryptocurrency. So kind of remove some of the gray areas that people may be hesitant to embark into a blockchain game. But at the same time, I feel that whether it's a large company going into blockchain or a small company going into blockchain, I think that they're going to build off each other. When the large one does it, a smaller one is more likely to take the leap. But at the same time, when a small company's getting an edge, the larger companies are also going to follow suit. So I think it's definitely, they're going to go tit for tat on that.
It's basically, I think it's going to be adopted like a payment gateway in the beginning. Like if Libra ends up coming out, of course it's a cryptocurrency, and it's with the meta token that Jehan talked about as well. Because if it's pegged to the dollar, it's a cryptocurrency acting like a dollar, and based on that, yes, multiple games can go on it. Big companies can come in, so it'll build a more friendlier ecosystem for sure. But then there might be debates on, what is blockchain, what is cryptocurrency, and why blockchain. All that discussions may come out again. I think it's very controversial at the same time.
I think it would be definitely a trigger point for the blockchain gaming. So, for example, in 2012, there was a Kakao game, which is a game platform on top of Kakao Mobile Messenger in South Korea. And Kakao Mobile Messenger has 50 million users globally. And at that time, the companies which made a big success in mobile area were the gaming companies. And by utilizing and leveraging the existing social graphs inside of the social platform, they made a big success in blockchain, in traditional mobile gaming. So I think very similar things could happen in blockchain scene as well, because if once Facebook launched the Libra project, there are lots of users already on top of Facebook. So if the infrastructure is established very well, I think mobile gaming companies can jump into by developing the blockchain gaming as well, and they can use and leverage the existing Facebook social graphs and utilize inside of their games. So I think it would be definitely a trigger point.
But how would that be different from a traditional game?
Yes, it's a very good point. I think, as I mentioned earlier, of course, the blockchain gaming should have fun and by combining the blockchain features inside of the game. So, for example, I think the open ecosystem architecture fits very well with blockchain or the smart contract architecture. So, for example, the AOS type games like League of Legends was originated from the Dota All-Stars, and Dota All-Stars was originated from the game editor of Warcraft. So once you give the tools to the users to generate content on top of existing games, it would be very, very strong potential for making a good community. So I think smart contract is natively have the features like that. So the third-party developers can develop any features on top of existing blockchain gaming by using smart contract. So for example, the CryptoKitties is making Kittyverse, and most of the third-party developers can leverage the existing data or existing game logic, and they can attach the other logic on top of existing smart contract. So I think it would be very strong potential in blockchain gaming by combining the tokens or the social graphs like this ecosystem.
Just to answer the question that you clarified, I actually think that it's going to be very difficult for one of the kind of smaller startups or smaller kind of game companies to actually achieve that kind of turning point. I think that generally in blockchain, we kind of think about it as an enterprise-first growth strategy. Like the first 100 million customers, the first 100 million clients to be using or touching blockchain will come from enterprise. That's kind of what we're seeing, what the net effect, whatever format, Libra eventually comes, that will be the effect. And I think we're going to see that as a knock-on. I think that eventually will happen in gaming as well. The majority of the first generation of kind of people that are either touching blockchain or using crypto in gaming will come from some form of enterprise, whether it's a gaming enterprise like an Ubisoft or something, or Facebook itself or a Tencent.
Thank you. I'll just come to the last question. I think Brian already mentioned the allocation in blockchain games. I just wanted to know how much focus you guys have in investing into crypto blockchain games at the moment. And also, in addition to that, I would like to hear your opinions on the valuations of the crypto, these token sales that these companies go for at the moment. I mean, sometimes I see that most of the times they come with a token valuation which is much higher than their equity valuation, and just want to hear your opinions on that.
Sure. From our standpoint, we look at equity plays in companies, equities investments. We feel that usually in an early stage company, they need to be able to have the capital that's freely available to them to grow and expand their company rather than worrying about regulatory issues or legal costs or the friction points that could exist from doing something like an ICO. And also with an ICO, given the uncertainty in certain markets, not being able to reach out or market to those clients. So if you use the US, for example, if you're going to launch a global game that's going to need to have hundreds of millions of users and you're instantly forbidding the transaction of those cryptocurrencies in the United States, then you're not going to be able to address the entire market that's available to you. So we would look for more of an equity play where we're investing capital into the company and they're able to use that for marketing expenses and helping get the onboarding of those clients directly rather than having to circumvent and make a little more friction points just to get that cryptocurrency in the hand. So instead of making it harder to use the game, we want the games to be like instant use. Earlier today, people talked about when you're downloading a game, it's got to be instant use and instant satisfaction. If you don't have those two metrics, you're not really going to have a game that people are going to play, because I think everyone here's first mobile game experience was either Brick Breaker or Snake. And that's not to be funny, but it's really what got you into gaming. You opened up your Nokia, and 4 seconds later, you're playing this game, and you knew what to do, and you didn't have to download a wallet or manage your keys. You just played a game, and it became addicting. And that led to the second iteration of mobile games when the iOS store came out, and you got into Candy Crush, and there was a game. There was, again, no instructions, no hard hurdles to clear, and it got you ingrained in the game. And then when they added in micropayments through the the App Store, that's when companies started realizing revenue in a micro sense. And so as that's gone on and those iterations have occurred, that's a natural progression of games. If you're going to do an ICO and you're not going to be able to have the game play that day and you're going to have to wait a year to play the game, you're less enthusiastic about it. If you download the game and you have to figure out that you have to put in a VPN to get into a different jurisdiction to play the game, you're not going to play the game. So what we see is, again, to go back to the question is, we look at the equity plays that makes games desirable and playable. Moving outside of those two key points makes a game that's not really going to grow. It's a really nice thing to have within the blockchain community, but if everyone always strives for mass adoption, you're not going to get there if you make it hard to play, because mass adoption means the lowest common denominator. I think everyone here, when they first started interacting with blockchain, especially with cryptocurrencies, it was a learning curve, right? And I think that was sometimes hard and discouraging, and a lot of people don't get to that next step of actually owning the cryptocurrency because it is so hard. So we would definitely encourage teams to look at other opportunities. That's why we've built a pretty good network with Jehan and stuff. There's definitely overlaps between our two funds and companies that have invested, companies we invested in, because we feel that providing the capital up front makes it easy for the companies to get to that delivery.
I think I agree with what Brian is saying. One of the things that I do like about kind of ICOs and these more kind of crowdfunding models is that it's pretty hard, as they were saying before about raising capital. And this is just another way to do it. If the community likes what you're doing, if they like you, if they want to back you and your idea, then they'll do it. And that's one of the unique and really special things about the blockchain community and this kind of very strange and potentially unsustainable kind of funding model that we've come up with. I think that when we get to things like STOs, when those are easier to do, and when the average retail investor can invest $100 into an STO to back a game, that starts to become even more interesting. And I think what Gods Unchained and some others are doing with pre-selling these kind of actual utility, basically what amount to kind of utility tokens from NFTs, like that starts to be even more interesting. So while as a fund we're committed to making equity investments primarily, I do think that all these other new models which allow capital to come to back projects and back founders is very important. So I'm really, personally very supportive of these types of ICOs, STOs, NFT sales, and all the different kind of hopefully permutations that will follow.
From my end, I think it goes back to the first question. So if it's a native blockchain game, we'll prefer investing early and actually working with the team heavily as well. And if it's more of the traditional side of gaming, but adding blockchain to it, then I'll probably wait out if they can actually survive, if the game goes out, and if it does well. Because I think it's much more, the returns on a general level, if we invest into multiple blockchain games, it'll be better with that strategy regarding returns. So I think that's how we would look into it. Related to native blockchain games, I mean, the reference is this. Because like when featured phones were out, like in 1999 till 2007, 8, like there were mobile game developers starting from Snake to all these one-button games that came out. They made a lot of money too. That's how Come To Us did an IPO in 2007. The developers don't moan about the infrastructure. That's the environment that they're in. It's a featured phone, small, very bad screen, very bad hardware, and you build a game based on that, and you provide fun. And that's something a game startup should do. And if that's their angle, I think the K factor, which is basically going to a lot of users, is immense. So something that's creative around the technological hurdles, which means they'll need to understand what exactly they are, is very interesting. And because of that reason, we also invest in infrastructure. We still continue investing in infrastructure of blockchain because that's how the whole blockchain industry scales based on technology?
I think it is, to be honest, very, very difficult to make a valuation of the tokens. I think one of the reasons make it very difficult is that the tokens itself has two characteristics. The first is equity characteristics, and the second is currency characteristics. So by combining these two features in one tokens, it is very, very hard for making a traditional valuation on the tokens. So I've only seen one type of tokens that can be adapted into the traditional valuation model. So it is a MakerDAO model. So MakerDAO has two tokens. The first one is DAI, which is a stable coin, and the other is Maker, which has a security features. So in that way, even the MakerDAO, the reason that we can make a traditional valuation is that DAI is stable coin. If the DAI is not a stable coin, it would be very difficult to make a valuation in Maker as well. So I think in the future, there will be more sophisticated way for the investment firms to evaluate the tokens, but nowadays it is very hard. So we are using like a comparison model with the other tokens, which is very similar to the existing token model. So yeah, that is the way we are evaluating.
Thank you, everyone, for very insightful comments. It was a great learning experience for myself, and hopefully for the audience. And I think we should open up for questions.
Sure. What's going to be the first game to go mainstream, do you think, with blockchain? Anyone? Take a guess. I'm looking for investment.
I sadly think it's kind of going to be the other way around. It's a mainstream game that's going to kind of incorporate either crypto or blockchain into it and find different ways to kind of monetize. I mean, they have the resources and they can activate their user base. I think it's really hard for a particular, especially given the state of the technology, given the state of the kind of mind share around kind of blockchain. Obviously, the kind of regulatory hearings didn't help. There's still going to be very much like a kind of either a wait and see or a cautionary type of approach to kind of user adoption in the game, no matter how good it is. So I'm not sure it will be a blockchain game that breaks through. I think it might be the other way around.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Sorry, his question was what would be the first blockchain game to break through? Yeah, as mainstream.
I think if I was looking at Crystal Ball and guess what blockchain game would go mainstream, I think it would be one that the players are not aware that it's blockchain based or blockchain's really a part of it. I think it's going to be a really addictive game that you download in an app store that people would play today. It just happens to be that a fundamental component of the back end is actually built on blockchain, where instead of the users having to wonder, is the game cheating me? Is this being fair? Or how rare is this item? They're actually able to see through things that they don't know that it's a block explorer. They just think it's a list. And they're able to get the better understanding of how the game metrics work and what they're playing against and who they're playing against. And I think that transparency, if you really go back to the fundamentals of blockchain, it was the peer-to-peer transactions, security, and transparency. And any game that's developed that implements those three components in a very easy-to-use way, I think that's where you'll get the mass adoption and you'll get scale, because people will feel that the game is not always cheating them. If you're playing a game and it always happens to get that wrong turn right at the wrong time, and you think that the game is cheating you or tricking you and convincing you to spend more money, but once that mindset is broken for the player and they're able to play games of more of a free will and not think that they're getting nickel and dime, I think that's where you'll see the adoption. Much to their surprise, they may find out later on that it's built on blockchain or a component of blockchain is being used.
I agree a lot on this. But I think it's two angles as well. One is if a game has user base that are crazy about something, that the users will just go over whatever hurdle they have for blockchain. That's one. And the points where I see these are related to celebrities like K-pop. Like BTS fans will do anything for BTS goods, right? Or something that is related to prize money and tournament money, So a payout system. So any game that's using a payout system, but it's blockchain, and then it'll need all the transparencies, and maybe a probability-related gacha system. So that's, well, gacha systems on this side, but this is about the hurdles. And then the other side is platforms that are, so it's not a game genre. I think it's a solution or a platform that helps traditional games or blockchain games to solve an issue. So gacha, right now, Google Play Store is actually asking for indie developers and developers to put up what are the probabilities for gacha systems that you have, because it's becoming a major issue in Europe. And what other tool would be good for doing that is blockchain. So I don't know if that's going to be a private chain or a public chain, or, you know, but if somebody builds that up, and if that is adopted by Google with their Play Store, then that's going to be heavily adopted. I don't know if it's related to cryptocurrencies, but mass user, yeah.
Yep, I think in blockchain gaming, I see many similar things with the early stage of online games. So in Korea, when the online game was coming out, there was a strong community with the development of the online games. So in blockchain gaming, the blockchain game is evolving and growing with the fan-based community. So for the companies, blockchain gaming companies, it is very, very important for growing this type of communities, because this is very, very early stage, and there are not many game users inside of a blockchain game scene. So whenever the game, blockchain gaming is evolving, this fan base, the early stage fan base, is very important part of the blockchain game, will be a very important part of the blockchain game. So if the team has know-how, strong know-how, or how to grow a strong fan-base community, it will be very strong for making the games successful.
Any other questions? Sure.
I'm an outsider. From my observation, perhaps I can see one of the drawbacks of games, and therefore of blockchain games, that they are just games. So, is there any attempt to link games with something, just something more weighted, like education or like healthcare? Are there games linked with education and healthcare? Thank you.
Sure. At a high level, I think that there's a lot of times that you're trying to gamify education to get more people interested in it, where there's a reward system or there's a manner of drawing people into the game. And with that, I think a lot of times with education, one of the things that's missing is easy credentials. So people get involved in trying to do online courses, but then there's no way to transfer that credential to another party. So in a very big hybrid situation, if you were to gamify certain learning components and put that information onto a blockchain and then able to roll that into actually doing the first round of course, like so you have a undereducated group that's able to do some very basic testing and take that testing online through a game, a gamification, and then roll it into a community college and able to show that they're able to prove that they're able to do these, whether it's math problems or logic problems. I think that gamification, that they may not know that it's games at the time or that it's on blockchain or that it's what the end goal is, but able to take that data set and put it to a better use, I think that's a very strong case that will be several years from now, but I think that will be the credentialing of data, I think will be a big component of blockchain.
Yeah, I think also I'll go a little bit further into the example of Satoshi's Treasure because I think it's relevant in this case. This idea of having games be constructive, to have some type of constructive output, I think is quite interesting. And really the root of Satoshi's Treasure, if you don't know what it is, I would take a look at it and Satoshi's Treasure.xyz. It's basically conceived of as a scavenger hunt where you have a disparate group of people who are not related to each other, who are all trying to solve 400 out of 1,000 clues. And each clue is, in some cases, a cryptographic proof, or it is a piece of work where they need to go find someone and give them something, so in the physical world. But it could also equally be something like, go and build a house for this particular region. So this idea that you can actually, at scale and with untrusted parties, direct a large number of people and a large community who are all organizing their work through a blockchain-based system to actually achieve a particular goal is very interesting. So they're starting it off with, kind of a Bitcoin-based treasure hunt where you can win $1 million in Bitcoin to solve this puzzle. But when you start to abstract that, they want to use this in different ways and basically point this engine and this community towards different purposes. And so this idea of kind of gamifying a constructive output, I think is really useful, especially when it helps to kind of bring people towards one end in a very decentralized and kind of trustless manner with a financial or potentially type of incentivization at the end. That to me is quite interesting.
So this probably is not a blockchain-related question, right? But so I know a team in South Korea that is building a game that is educative for kids with autism. So it's a game edutainment content, and right now he's been doing a research with hospitals and doctors that are working, that are trying to cure autism. And he's building a program for that, and it's gamified. So he's an ex-Nexon, ex-DevSysters guy who's been working on this, on building up the concept, while he's making a game company. So that's one I know. When I was sitting in Storm Ventures in Silicon Valley, a lot of the discussions that I had with the investors there is that they usually want to invest either in games or education. But when somebody tries to mix it up, business-wise, it's not really good. So they're not charities, so they try to pass on that. That was a lot of the discussions that happened. And maybe that's why there aren't that many gamified or games that are trying to cure or educate. Yeah.
And for example, in Korea, there is an online game called Gunju Online. So Gunju means king in Korean. In that game, there is a very special system inside of the game. So there is an election system inside of the game, and the user should be elected as a king among the users, the other users, and by voting, if once the king is elected, the king can allocate the minister of each department. It is user as well, and the gaming company, the centralized gaming company, does not interfere into the games of the operation side. So, and also there is a very strong economic system inside of the game. So if the user killed the monster, there will be no complete equipment can be acquired. Only components can be acquired, and these components can be traded among the users inside of the marketplace of the game. And with the components, everyone can make a complete equipment like game items. And also, there is another very special thing inside the game is if the users wants to buy a town, they need to buy the shares of the town. So this is very, very similar to the corporation. So they need to buy the equity and they get dividends of the taxes. So this game ecosystem is on the textbook of Seoul National University economic class textbook. So this is very directly related to the education, because the system itself is very similar to real-world use cases. So I think game itself could be, you can call it just a game, but to the gamers, it could be a life, their lives. And also, if you think about the Lineage, Lineage is a Korean MMORPG game which is running for the past 19 years, and its accumulated revenue is $3 billion US. So to the gamers of the Lineage, it is not just a game anymore. It is their lives. So inside of the game, one of the items can be traded as a 100,000 US dollar. It's very expensive. So to them, it is not just a game. So by playing the games, they can earn the money for their living. So it is directly related to our lives. So it is just itself is education, I think.
And I'll just give one more example. In the United States, most people know about the SAT, and that's a standardized test. It was technically developed to test the aptitude of individuals. One of the big components of standardized, or one of the biggest proponents of standardized testing is that it's a single point in time testing of a individual's aptitude or education or intelligence. And what they found out over time, over the past 6 years of modern education, is that a lot of times there's a gap, that's the one time students are testing, or that's the one time the teachers push that topic and teach to that test. And so teaching to the test or teaching for the test has been actually a big detriment to the overall education system, is because people are able to do that one function and that one test very well, but lack the skill in application long term. A way to solve that is that some of the education softwares that are being developed are actually gamifying education. If you were to give the student a game, a very easy example is number crunchers from back in the 80s. Number crunchers was allowing a lot of sets where they would give the kids, in a very friendly, meaningful way, in a real world situation, 5 plus 4. Like things of that nature. And if you take all those data points and you have tens of thousands of data points versus just a single test, but that students being tested over and over and over again, and you're able to take that information, and blockchain provides two values. One, it helps anonymize that data when it's sent back to whether it's the education boards or the textbook creators or the teachers themselves. They're able to see that in an anonymized sense, since you're able to protect that data rather than single out individuals based on race or gender or economic background. But at the same time, you can prove for standardized testing in that sense, when it's used, you can be sure that there's no fraudulent behavior afterwards, where teachers are going back and adjusting the test, or people are being paid. And that's very prevalent right now, or very top of the mind right now in the United States, given on what's happened with some of the admissions testing. But using blockchain in that sense, in a gaming way, or just protecting data sets, is a very valuable case that people may not be, it's not the big money maker, but rather it helps provide a better value for education for many generations to come.
Sorry, one last comment. I love this, where this kind of conversation is going, actually, in terms of like work and play and learning and play. And like, think that, the part of the takeaway is that it's all kind of blurring together, like what you get paid to do and what you kind of enjoy working at. And what's interesting about blockchain is that it kind of provides that, in some way, technical layer to be able to kind of blend all those things and get paid to do certain things. One of the companies we invested in is called HCAPTCHA. So it's a replacement for reCAPTCHA. Actually, we both invested in it. reCAPTCHA. So it's like, the little thing where you identify all the bridges or the stop signs, and it's a challenge. So instead of using Google's, where you're basically training an AI to kind of recognize these things, you actually will train someone else's AI who's actually paying you, and you get paid in their tokens to do this. So this idea of like tokenizing the incentive to like do this little bit of work could very easily be turned into a game where you're solving a small riddle, which eventually trains an AI. And so the combination of all these like work, education and play, and the things that and how you incentivize that, I think is really where the big opportunity is. And if you're building a game, I would really look at that as kind of that next phase, because that's really where the exciting stuff is. Like, to get paid to play something that you really enjoy, like that's the holy grail.
Yeah, I think it's about time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.